Welcome to the first 40 with the Goon Squad and our honorary squad member, Tim May. We know him as the Snow Leopard. He's going to sit in with us a little bit today about college football. How you doing, Mr. May?
I'm ready to go. Actually, snow leopards hardly make a noise because they don't want you to know they're there. So I'm doing extremely well. How are you guys doing?
Well,
Great.
good to
Doing
have
great.
you.
Great to see you again. Great to hear you again. Let's go right to it. There were some, I thought, great games last Friday. I was hoping that Ohio State would put a shellacking on Clemson, and they did. I think you predicted that. I think you predicted the score would be 38-31. And
Yeah.
every time you put a prediction on Twitter, I paid close attention because you were the one who made the prediction that Buster Douglas would beat Mike Tyson. So anytime you make a prediction, I listen really closely. But I know you put a lot of things on Twitter, and I want you to kind of share some of the things that you were seeing, because one of the things I was seeing was Fields. That was the toughest, most heroic thing that I've seen an athlete do in a long time. Take a shot like that and refuse to get off the field and throw 6 touchdowns and really willed his team to win. You could see the team kind of rallying behind him. If he can go out there and do it, they were like, we can go out here and win this football game. But I'm going to give the floor to you. What are your thoughts about the game?
My opinion, it was, as I've tweeted and have talked about a bunch since then, it was the greatest performance by an Ohio State quarterback in a postseason game like that. I mean, you can talk about Cardale Jones and yeah, he had a good. Nobody's had a game like Justin Fields had the other night, throwing the ball. But then on top of that, you had the fact that he almost got knocked out of the game, came back in. This was second quarter, came back in after one play, after one visit to the tent, and got a couple of shots that helped him deal with the pain. Came back in, and to play that way, that just adds to the legend. I mean, Justin Fields, I've always thought he's the most talented overall when you take everything in consideration quarterback Ohio State's ever had at that position. Uh, but now you throw in legendary status about what he did in a college football playoff semifinal against a team that was favored, a team that has been stuck in Ohio State's craw for a year especially, and to see him step out there and do that, and you knew he was hurting. It reminded me, really, guys, of Tiger Woods when he won the 2008 U.S. Open, and come to find out he actually had a broken bone, a broken kneecap, or whatever you want to call it, but he knew he had a knee injury, and he knew swing. If he could handle the pain after the swing, then he could still hit the ball and hit it where he wanted it to go. And that's what and you saw him wince all the way around the course and finally won in a playoff. It was crazy. But we saw a lot of that in Justin Fields the other night. He knew that throwing the ball was not going to hurt him. It was going to be after he threw the ball that was going to hurt him. So he just wound up and let her fly. And wow. And then on top of that, you're going to get into this, I'm sure, but the rise of Trey Sermon has been ridiculous the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. And we'll get into that, I'm sure, as long as the show goes. But to answer your question, yeah, Justin Fields, as I've tweeted, greatest performance by an Ohio State quarterback in that kind of situation so far. I'm gonna give him the possibility of maybe one up him himself on Monday night in Miami Gardens against Alabama.
Yeah, Sermon ran he had 31 attempts, 193 yards, and Fields had 22 completions with 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, only 1 interception. And when you think about Clemson, and I'm going to turn it over to the other guys, Clemson was only able to rush the ball for 44 yards. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. And me and Ice talked about it offline. The offensive side was impressive, but I think Ohio State's defense was more impressive in how they handled Clemson.
Yeah, but this is what's interesting. The biggest difference in this game and the game the year before, when Ohio State got beat, what was it, 29-23, was when Ohio State got into the red zone this time, they scored a touchdown. With the one exception was the interception that Justin threw. And I know that's a pass he'd rather have back. It did get tipped, but he threw into coverage. But that's the difference between these two games, because Ohio State outgained Clemson a year ago by 100 and I think 101 yards or 100 yards, and but didn't score in the red zone. Those 3 chances in the red zone in the first half where they fell short. They could have been up 28-0 in that game, or at least 24-0, and settled for 3 field goals and a touchdown. That was clearly the difference in this game. Defensively, ironically, Ohio State gave up 1 less point in this game from last year, but gave up another 30 or 40 more yards than they did. But, as the old saying goes, it's not how you play defense, it's when you play defense, when you get those stops. They got those stops when it was 14-14. They started getting those stops, which allowed them to push the score out, push the lead out. And that's what's key because, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, you're not going to stop their offenses every time. These teams now are way too talented. But if you can get key stops, that's the difference.
Yeah, no doubt, too. Plus, when you think about it, you mentioned about the numbers in regards to the yards are concerned, but you give up 400 yards passing to Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
And still able to contain them and win that football game. If somebody told you that from the initial start, there's no way in heck you would say, oh, yeah, I think Ohio State is going to win because it seems like it was too many yards.
Well, yeah, the more question is, if you give up 28 points, can Ohio State win? I thought they could. I mean, I thought the opportunities were there against that defense. Brent Venables gets a lot of run, but a little stat I put online today was, the last 2 games against Ohio State, Clemson has given up 1,135 yards or 1,165 yards, whatever the number is. Then you add in that the 638 yards they gave up to LSU in the championship game last year. That's 1,800 yards or so they've given up in their last 3 college football playoff games. I don't care who you are. I don't care how good an offense you got.
Right.
That's hard. It's hard when you're letting the other team have a 500 or 600 yard night, and now your offense has got to compete with that. That's very difficult. I'm really interested to see if Dabo Swinney maybe kind of like looks back on his defensive staff now, and Brent Venables, the very famous defensive coordinator got, and go, wait a minute, this is pretty good when you're playing ACC opponents, but when it gets to the big time, kind of like stepping into a hole and kind of standing there and trying to play, and that's difficult. And so that to me is what stood out. I knew Ohio State, the opportunities were going to be there if they could hit them to move the ball on these guys. I thought Ohio State's offensive line, which is, in my opinion, maybe the best offensive line in the country as we speak this season, was going to hold sway at points because that was not as talented a Clemson defensive front as you saw even a year ago. So, you just got to kind of look past the hype and the stuff and really look at the matchups. And I'm sure we'll get into this Alabama-Ohio State matchup because I've already looked at that too, and there are some favorable things offensively for both teams coming up in this game.
Yeah, I was telling my brother, he called me in between the game, and he's like, man, what are they doing? And he was so surprised. I said, but I'm not. He said, why aren't you surprised when they threw 3 touchdowns to the tight ends? I was like, dude, Ohio State has had tight ends open forever. We go back to John Lumpkin. We go back to Ricky Dudley. You already know that. Jeff Ellis. Yeah. We've been watching tight ends forever, man. They just have not thrown them the damn ball.
Charles, I have a favorite saying. Nobody covers the tight end, but especially in college football. I mean, even in the pros, that's the make or break position anymore. But, everybody's all over, everybody's all highfalutin to get over the top or to get this, that, and the other. Nobody covers a tight end consistently in college football. They're not geared to. And when you can put 2 tight ends on the field at the same time with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and then Trey Sermon in the backfield, and both of those tight ends are capable of getting up the field, they're definitely capable of getting open, and they're both really good pass catchers. Ryan Day may have had a hallelujah moment the other night, an epiphany, whatever you want to call it, that's a weapon they haven't used as much as they should have. But you know what? When Chris Olave's wide open down the field or Garrett Wilson's wide open on a deep dig or something, hey, those are 2 of the best receivers in college football. Yeah. Pick your poison.
That's true.
Okay. Black, you want to get in on this?
Just a little bit, man. Congratulations to Ohio State. I kind of thought Clemson was going to take it, but I love the fact that Ohio State gave it to them. Just the mere fact that the coach of Clemson had to eat crow, that's enough for me. So I'm going to, keep my words short. I'm happy to see the snow leopard here, and I'm going to yield my time to him.
Yeah, here's what you like about Dabo Swinney. he will say stuff like that, and he won't deny he said it, and he'll give you the reasons why he said it. Doesn't mean you have to agree with him, right? But as I was on some radio shows down there and nationally, even in the whole week building up to it, because me, I'm not afraid to talk. But like I pointed out, he was really upset that Ohio State was in there with just 6 games. Just gave his mindset. But as I pointed out, well, you know what? Clemson got to play 10 or 11 games, but they got another shot at Notre Dame in that. They got a shot to right or wrong, and they took care of business. Most of the time, you don't get a shot to fix that loss. What if Ohio State had gotten to play Purdue again a few years ago when Purdue whacked them? You know what I mean? Or Iowa. Both of those teams would have been in the playoffs. And so, watch out what you say, because it'll always come back to bite you in some form or fashion. And I know there's a lot of Clemson fans right now that are upset at him because he thought he gave Ohio State a lot of bulletin board material. But you guys know this, man. Once the game starts, what that kind of does is help you prepare. It helps you give you vim and vigor on the practice field and in the study room. But once the game starts, it's a heavyweight championship fight. You're getting hit, and somebody's trying to take your head off, and you're trying to take their head off. But if you're there more prepared because of something that was said, that's what gives you the edge.
Let's move to the Alabama Notre Dame game. And my thing is, and I've been talking about this for weeks, is that Notre Dame usually just gets a kind of a pass to get into the playoffs. And I didn't buy into Coach Kelly saying, we just need to be there. When the last 7 times they've been in the playoffs, they've been really kind of blown out in the playoffs. So what's your take on Kelly's kind of rationale that, we've been there and we're just going to continue to be there? My kind of belief is if you're going to be there, you might as well try to win it. And Notre Dame always getting the nod to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, they don't always get the nod, but they have gotten a nod a lot, a few times. Let's put it that way. This year, I thought it was deserved because they did beat Clemson. And yeah, Clemson turns around and beats them, thumps them in the ACC championship game. But, they at least proved that they were worthy of being on the field with Clemson with that win at Notre Dame way back. When was that? October. They were obviously Clemson was missing its starting quarterback, but really Clemson's problem then was defensively. They couldn't stop Notre Dame. I mean, forget about who was playing quarterback for Clemson. That game went into overtime, and Notre Dame pulled it out. But the point was, the committee determined that Clemson was their number 2 team, and if you have a loss and a win over that number 2 team, probably you do deserve more of a look than Texas A&M, et cetera. Now, with that said, as I said earlier today, the 3 best programs, the 3 most talented, deepest programs in the country right now are Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson in no particular order. They've got almost the same players on their rosters, 5 stars, 4 stars, sprinkling of 3 stars that were probably underrated. but that's the difference. And Notre Dame doesn't have quite that complete roster, if you follow my drift, but neither does Texas A&M yet. They may be moving that direction. Neither does Iowa State. I mean, you can make arguments for all these teams in one form or fashion, but I thought Notre Dame belonged there this year because if you just go on results, Texas A&M got his hat handed to it by Alabama way back in what was that, early October, and so should they get a shot over a team that played for the ACC championship? Now we can talk about the ACC, till the cows come home, because that's a different animal. But I just, like I said, Notre Dame was 1-1 against the number 2 team in the college football playoff committee's selection committee's rankings, so I could see them getting in this time. But clearly, whenever you have 4 teams, there's going to be one of them that's going to be a little lacking. And like I said, you could say the same thing about Cincinnati. It went undefeated, but when you watch that Georgia game, I don't know. Does Cincinnati belong? Did they belong, or they deserve to get the nod? I don't think so. Texas A&M, I don't think so. So there you are.
Also, what do you think just in general, now you're looking at that matchup between Ohio State and Alabama? We're moving forward. It's all hype. You got a lot of stuff going on. Both teams can score. Both can play defense. Of course, Ohio State probably come in as underdog because of what they did to Clemson. But just kind of give me what your perspective is in that overview of that game.
Yeah, I was on Channel 10 the other night with Dom Taberry on Wall to Wall Sports, and I was on there with Joey Kaufman from the Dispatch, where I used to work. You know, when I was an actual full-time employee of some place, where I went into semi-retirement, semi-repose, as my wife likes to call it, because that's what I'm mainly doing. I'm mainly reposing, but I digress. He had some comment about Dom asked him what he thinks Nick Saban's thinking about watching, you know, this, that, and the other. And when he was done, I said, I'll tell you what Nick Saban's thinking about. He's thinking about the fact that Ole Miss almost beat them with just a wide open attack. Mm-hmm. Florida had a shot at them at the end in that SEC championship game. If you look at Ohio State from top to bottom offensively, it's a more potent offense than either one of those two offenses. This is not the great Alabama defenses of yesteryear. I think they're pretty good. They got good players, but it's not a great defense. If you can throw the ball, you definitely have a shot against these guys. And what has come along, and I even wrote about this for Letterman Row at lettermanrow.com this week, the offensive line from Ohio State is as good, might be as good as any offensive line Ohio State's ever had. I mean, in my opinion, from a talent standpoint, just relatively speaking of who they're playing against these days. And with Wyatt Davis at right guard, my goodness, there's a wheel horse, you know, and Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle, Josh Myers at center. You know, they had Matthew Jones at left guard the other night because Harry Miller was out, you know, we do believe because of COVID-19, but then Thayer Munford, you know, you talk about a 3-star who was totally underrated. That's because he didn't get to play his senior year because of a transfer situation. I'm talking senior year in high school, but Thayer Munford is almost as good as any tackle in the country. He's got to be looking at Ohio State's offense like this is the best offense we faced this year. That's what's on his mind. And Ohio State's defensive coaches and coaches, Ryan Day, they've got to be thinking the same thing when they think about Alabama with Najee Harris. And you know about Devontae Smith. Well, now comes a report today. This is Monday of the week, in case this is tape recorded for further use down the road for you know, what do you call it, instant classics. But Alabama's getting Jalen Waddle back, it looks like, for practice this week. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Nobody was talking about Devontae Smith when Waddle was playing for Alabama until Waddle got hurt. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So Sean Wade, Sevyn Banks, Josh Proctor, Marcus Williamson, et al. That means everybody else. Right. Sharpen those cleats, man. It's going to be an interesting night in Miami Gardens.
Yeah, it is. It is. And when you look at that perspective, when Ohio State beat Alabama in the college semifinal before, as you mentioned, they opened it up in regards to like wide open. In fact, so much that when we knew Tom Herman was the offensive coordinator, when he left before he went to Houston, they made sure that he came down in some kind of way, visited Alabama. I was like, yeah, okay. You don't think anybody saw that? Because they needed to know what the hell just happened to them. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, you're stupid if you don't learn from what you know, from where you went wrong. And Nick Saban's one of the great coaches in college football history for a reason, man. He's always trying to improve, or always trying to, you know, if the flood's coming, you know, put more sandbags up. You know what I mean? I mean, he's impressive, man. I mean, I've said all along that what he's doing. I was born in Alabama. Lived there till 1965. When I was 11, we moved to Texas. But my dad took me and my older brother Ben to Alabama home games from 61 to 64. And Bear Bryant, you know, was great. Alabama won 3 national championships, 61, 64, and 65. And those were, you know, obviously they won others in the 70s with Bear Bryant. But even those were all voted on. Nick Saban, man, he's got it done. You've got to play for your championship now. You know, it's kind of like you got to sing for your supper. You've got to play for your championship now with first the BCS and now the college football playoff, which is what in its seventh season, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, seventh season. I had to count on my fingers. But that's the difference. I mean, that's why Nick Saban, in my opinion, has done his exploits are greater than what Bear Bryant did. And I don't even remember what the question was, Charles, but my point is that he's done a great job of trying to stay ahead of the game. Look at all the assistant coaches he's gone through. The teams come in and pluck every year. Jeremy Pruitt here, Lane Kiffin, the Florida Atlantic. Even this year, Steve Sarkisian has been named the Texas coach to replace your beloved Tom Herman. But round down the line, he's lost, Mel Tucker went with Kirby Smart. When Kirby Smart left to go to Georgia, Mel Tucker went with him. Mel Tucker now head coach at Michigan State, was at Colorado last year. But he's had to replace big-time assistant coaches, big-time recruiters, some of them, every year, but he still keeps getting the job done. And two reasons. He demands excellence from guys he has in there, but he also recruits career end off. That's why he and Urban Meyer, in my opinion, were cut above. And now Clemson is in that same boat with Dabo Swinney. He brings in great players, et cetera. But yeah, he wanted to learn what was missing that night. But here's the thing: people forget about that game. That game was 42-35. It wasn't 42-10.
No.
Alabama was throwing to the end zone on the last play with a chance to tie the game.
Right.
Travis Powell, I had him on my podcast a couple of weeks ago or last week. He intercepts a ball. Instead of going down, he comes running out of the end zone with it. I mean, my point was, as well as Ohio State played, they need every point they got that night. I mean, that was a game with ridiculous huge plays in it, from Steve Miller's pick six, defensive end pick six, to that pass from Evan Spencer to can't guard Michael Thomas,
Right.
just for a half. I mean, great play. Obviously, Cardale Jones with some of his great runs and throws, and around down the line, not the least of which was Zeke Elliott's 85-yard run through the heart of the South, as they called it. I think Homage or 11 Warriors or somebody called it that, but it was quite apropos after a great block by Evan Spencer at the line of scrimmage. I mean, they needed all of that, and
Right.
still Alabama was coming after him. If Alabama, Blake Sims was a former safety who they converted into a quarterback. I mean, if Alabama had what I'd call a real quarterback that year, who knows? They had Amari Cooper. They had Derrick Henry. They had Yeldon. They had Yeldon. The running, the two running backs. I mean, that was a loaded team that I figured out how to win. Of course, I think it wasn't too bad with Joey Bosa and Cardale Jones and Zeke Elliott and can't guard Mike, the greatest receiver in football. And those are two. That's the thing that people don't understand is like slowly but surely Ohio State has sort of become, for one another term, the Alabama of the North. You could put Ohio State in the Southeastern Conference and it would fare extremely well these days.
Okay, let's get to the $1 million question. Next Monday, championship game, Ohio State, Alabama. Who takes the crown?
Like, what? I know you want me to just give you one sentence so you can get the hell out of here, but what I like is if Justin Fields is close to full go, which I think he will be close to full go. I haven't heard that he had any broken bones or anything like that from that situation. They wouldn't have put him back in there. I mean, I know Ohio State's medical staff about as well as anybody. They're not into that, but they are into, if a guy can go, getting him ready to go, you know what that takes sometimes. But I think their advantage still is at quarterback. I love Mac Jones, man, what he's done. He's probably been as prolific a passing quarterback as Alabama has ever had, and that's going back a long ways, fellas. I mean, I saw Joe Willie Namath play on two good knees and live, and right on down the line, on up through there, Tua and all those fellas. But what Mac Jones has done with that group of receivers and that running back Najee Harris has been excellent. But Justin Fields has got great receivers around him, great tight ends, a great running back now, and Trey Sermon, who finally got into synchronicity with that offensive line or rhythm. You can tell he's very comfortable now running behind those guys. You got to remember, a year ago he was still recovering from knee surgery from that knee injury he suffered middle of the season at Oklahoma. So they've got something going there. That Mayan Williams, by the way, who went in to relieve him times, wow, he didn't get enough. In my opinion, he didn't get enough coverage for the fact that he did a hell of a job, because Master Fatigue III wasn't available due to, I guess, what was a concussion. Man, I always digress. Bottom line is, I think Ohio State has a more dangerous player at quarterback than Alabama does, because Mac Jones is a great passer from the pocket. He can run a little bit, but he can't run like Justin Fields if Justin Fields wants to run. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be the difference. 4 or 5 plays Justin Fields makes with his feet to keep drives alive could be the real difference here. And, Mac Jones is sort of that kind of like he's going to be sitting there kind of like I think this Ohio State defensive line would like a quarterback to be. We haven't said Haskell Garrett's name. I'm going to throw it out there. I want to make sure guys who deserve it get out there. Tommy Togiai, they had another great game the other night. I expect a similar performance from them against Alabama's offensive front. Although Alabama's offensive front is good, it really got hurt by losing that center, in my opinion, because he was a cut above. But he's out for the year, or the last 2 games. But I really like the fact that Ohio State has a more mobile quarterback than Mac Jones. Well, that'll come back to bite me. Mac Jones will run for 100 yards. But I think that could be the difference in what looks like otherwise a pretty even Steven game offensively and defensively. Because this Alabama defense the ball can be moved on these guys. There is no doubt about it if you have the temerity to stand in there and deliver.
Plus, too, when you looked at it before, the main thing about Ohio State against Clemson, when you hold Lawrence to negative yards rushing, when he busts him up for 100 yards plus in the previous year, that says a lot, which I'm very interested to see what the defense does, like you said, versus Alabama.
Yeah, and they kept Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne only rushed for like 33 yards the year before against Ohio State. And I think the other night he might have had fewer than that. I know they only rushed for 44 net, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
You can check that stat. But, yeah, that was huge. I mean, Clemson had no running game. It had no running game the year before, but it made 4 huge plays in that game, and 2 of them were were passes out of the backfield to Etienne. Well, Ohio State, he still caught a few, but Ohio State didn't let him go the distance this time. Now, all that said, they still scored 28 points, but they only scored 14 after the score was 14-14. And that's where I give the Ohio State defense credit. They tightened up enough, to force punts finally. And while Clemson only scored 14 more points, Ohio State helped me with my math. Ohio State scored 35 more.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'll take that any day.
Sure.
Yeah, Etienne had 32 yards the last game, so maybe 1 more yard than the previous year. So
yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, Trey Sermon should have gone over 200, but that stiff arm where he grabbed the guy's face mask at the end, remember?
Yeah.
And 15-yard penalty, it took away about 15 of those yards, or he'd have been well into the 200s. Just like J.K. Dobbins the year before had 175 or whatever it was till he got that high ankle sprain in that game. I mean, the evidence was there as long as main guys didn't get hurt. And of course, the entire Buckeye Nation held their breath when Justin Fields went down and didn't get back up for a while. So, hey, and that's going to be the same way Monday night. An injury here or there, et cetera, can totally change the outcome of a college football game. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I'm looking for Ohio State to pull it out in this game. And same way I was looking at Clemson being taken out by Ohio State. I just felt like last year when Ohio State came up short with that miscommunication between Fields and the receiver, it seemed like they had been thinking about that all year long and what could have been. And I just see them kind of finishing it out this game. And after
Did you see Olave get that touchdown on the same post cut?
Yeah.
The other night? Yeah. I mean, if he'd have had it last year. I mean, they had that Nolan Turner, and they talked about Nolan Turner the other night because he had to miss the first half because of an illegal hit the week before against Notre Dame. But you know, their defense did seem to get a little better with Nolan Turner back in the game. Let's put it that way. Ohio State had the matchup it wanted on that particular play, but Olave did what he did, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Anything else, Ice?
He, as always, he comes through, man. Appreciate you on the late notice, brother.
What's the ice water thing, man? Mean? I'm not up on that. What is ice water? What does that mean?
Man, I've been cool under pressure, brother. Always like cold ice water, brother. Come on now.
Okay. I always knew you were cool under pressure. You know that, Charles. I just didn't. I always called you Charles in charge. You understand that, right?
Yeah, I do.
And I thought you and I could have had a radio show at one point. I kept trying to get in on your radio shows. You never would invite me. You know, it would be sort of like Frank Sinatra taking over singing, you know, from Joe Bigelow or something. You know what I mean?
You are hilarious. You know, I'm gonna just say this. You have always been cool, man. You always been a good dude, particularly up in that press box when there's only a few brothers up in the press box. That's all I'm
Yeah, that's still
regardless of the fact you were always straight, you were always a good guy, and I appreciate you, man. Much love.
Hey, by the way, my favorite line about there's, you know, some of us, as I say about, you know, African Americans on the field, and there's a lot of white guys up there covering them, you know, and women. But I always say some of us were born to run, and some of us were born to pun, you know. And I was definitely born to pun because I can't run. That's for dang sure. But Charles, anytime I can help you guys out, man, and vice versa, man, I appreciate it.
And we appreciate you. I follow you on Twitter. I love your takes on college football and your sweet tweets. Your sweet tweets, yeah.
Who knew it was sweet to tweet? Who knew it?
Man, your show is over the top, man. You have great guests. Nobody says no to you, man. I'm watching the Urban Meyer interview. I'm watching Eddie George. I was like, he got Eddie? Only a few people know that Eddie number. Anyway, I know that.
Eddie's my favorite guy ever. You understand that? And Orlando Pace, too. I got Orlando on this week's thing talking about this offensive line on my podcast, the Tim May podcast. And, you know, Orlando always brings the heat, man. I love Orlando, man. Those are two guys I am so fortunate I got to meet in my career covering sports. I mean, and they're two of the greatest ever. Orlando Pace still to me is the greatest offensive tackle I've ever seen. And I will go to purgatory, sports writer purgatory saying that.
He's a good dude, man. Both of them. Are you got any plans to bring on Sean Springs at any time?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've tried to. He and I haven't connected, but I've tried to bring him on a couple of times. You know, he's an interesting dude in his own right now because you know he's got like you guys may have talked to him, but he's even into like equipment, right. Football equipment and stuff, and trying to help the safety aspect of things. And Sean, man, yeah, we're running off the field to Rose Bowl, 1996. 97, January 1. And he's running. I mean, so I started running next to him, and I said, and he goes, Mr. May, you can now write it. Sean Springs is the best cornerback in college football. And then he ran off. One of my favorites of all time. Yeah. I've got a lot of favorites. I start saying that, and then I name another guy, Anthony Gonzalez, one of my favorites, Troy, when he was there, he was one of my favorites because, he's one of those guys that wasn't afraid to tell you like it is, man. Still isn't. But right on down the line, man. I've been very privileged. I mean, Keith Byers. Oh my goodness.
Before you get out of here, give us the name of your podcast and then where people can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, my podcast is the Tim May Podcast. That's pretty unique, huh? What do you think? Pretty clever. And then I'm at on Twitter. I'm at Tim_May Sports. Tim_May Sports. All one word with that little underline in there. And then I'm at LettermanRow.com. Write a few stories for those guys too. So we have a good time, man. I know you guys do too, the Goon Squad. Yeah. We always love having you on the show. Anytime you want to come back and talk sports with us, we are honored to have you on the show as our honorary squad member.
Hey, Tim.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be in the Goonies.
We got to bring you back to talk boxing, bro. Real talk.
Yeah.
Hey, anytime, man. I mean, you didn't have me back. The Buster Douglas 30-year anniversary came and went, Y'all about the only ones that didn't ask me to come on. That's okay. I'll save some fresh stuff for you fellas. Hey, we'll do the sequel. We'll do the 31st anniversary show on February the 9th or something.
It's a date.
There you go. I'm there, man. Count me in. See you, fellas.
Take
Have a
care.
good night.
Thank you.
All right, man. You got grievances about the numbers?
Oh, man. All I know is how you gonna give me 12 and 4 and then drop me down to 9 and 7? If I'm 9 and 7,
I'll
I'm
tell
9
you
and
exactly
7.
how that happened. I'll tell
That's
you.
all right. That's all right. That's all right. Every year something going on in the numbers, bro. Every year. You wait till the last week of the season to pull something out, but that's all right.
Yeah. Actually, I was on the phone with Ice, and I was doing the. Remember, I was doing the numbers, and I'm like, okay, you and Pop
Come
going
on,
time.
man.
I was transferring it to the phone, and what I do is I cut and paste from week to week, and I forgot to change the 12 and 4 to 9 and 7 to yours. So when you emailed me earlier, or you texted me yesterday, I thought you were joking. Like, yeah, check the numbers. I'm like, that's black lady. Then Pop was like, when I sent the other one back, the corrected one, Pop was like, you drunk? You just sent me this yesterday. And I'm like, oh, man. Then Ice called me. He was just laughing. So I'm like, oh, man.
I think Pops had it right the first time, bro.
Oh man.
I'm like, man.
Hey, congratulations to Pops and Ice, man. They rode tough this season, man. I tried to swing, I couldn't get there. A lot of good close games that just kind of at the end didn't pan out. I mean, didn't pan out. I had a good time though.
One of the things I noticed that in these picks from year to year is that if you don't get to a real kind of good jump at the beginning, you're going to be trying to catch up all year, and you may not be able to do that.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough to catch up. And so when Pop jumped out ahead of all of us, I was like, and then I think I was the second at first, and then I just kept sliding back because I couldn't keep up with him. And then Ice came and got up with him. But I think it's initially important to kind of jump up ahead. But congratulations to both of them. I haven't talked to him yet about it, but I will give him that, and I'm pretty sure he'll have messages for us next week about how he had us on the ropes and how he kicked up. But yeah, pretty sure. But I wanted to give him some time before we talk about the NFL, some time to recover off the Dallas Cowboy loss, the last game of the season. And there are a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans I have not contacted because I know they'll cuss me out. Give them a few days. Give them a few days. It's the tradition, like no other. Dallas Cowboys. Losing the last game of the season and out the playoffs once again. The tradition, like look, Larry Nance says that about the Masters. Black, give me your eye test on the last week. You thought there was a game today. You even texted me like, you ain't even count the Monday night game. And I'm like,
I was asking was there a Monday night game. I was asking. I didn't think there were because I figured since you dropped the numbers. I didn't get a chance to catch too many of them, man. I saw some. I mean, the Ravens seem like I know there was the Cincinnati Bengals. Seem like they tuned up and starting to kind of do some things. Seattle, I'm not sure about. The Rams are kind of talking a little junk. They want Seattle this weekend. I was really surprised that the Buffalo Bills basically took the Dolphins out behind the shed and did another one. I did not see that coming. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with the Falcons. I was hoping Raheem get that coaching job. But you can't let Atlanta just kind of abuse, not Atlanta, Tampa Bay abuse you like that twice, bro. It's just, they're in your division. Tom Brady, no Tom Brady. You got to stand up and beat them at some point. So those are the kind of games that kind of really kind of jumped out. I was surprised as anyone that the Giants handled the Cowboys. I was just surprised. Jerry Jones, I don't know what you could do, bro. I really don't know what you could do. I know one thing, you may want to give it to that coach. I will say start there. But there's something going on because it's like they just cannot get it together. He spends the money. He has the players. He drafts well. But that team, for whatever reason, no matter who's quarterbacking, can't get over the hump. There's no reason why that team should not dominate that division, even when the quarterback got hurt this year. You brought a decent backup quarterback. It should have happened. And the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm not saying what the coach did in a sense. And I think Chris Collinsworth said it best. It's not based on the Giants. How do you do that to your team that's out there trying to win?
Yeah.
Just that fact alone, those guys out there trying to win a game, and you put a quarterback out there at a crucial point of the game that you want to see what he has nothing. You see that in practice, he has nothing. If you think about keeping on your roster next year, you're joking yourself. I mean, realistically, it made me actually start to feel sorry for Wentz in a sense. That maybe dog Wentz style something because that was a dumb bonehead move. You need to get your rookie quarterback rhythm, get him playing time. The more he can play in different situations, win or lose, he needs to be out there. To take him off the field and put that cat in, like he has a potential starting next year, unbelievable.
Yeah, I thought, Ice, that was that's a team killer right there because you got those guys practicing all week. You got those guys, prepared to go out there and win a game. And I don't even know. I watched Zach Ertz, him coming off that field and how emotional he was, thinking that this might be his last time playing in a Philadelphia uniform. And some of the guys who came out and said, you know what, we wanted to win that game. And, yeah, I'm a Giants fan, but the Giants don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Mm-mm. But you don't do that to a team as a coach. You just lost your team. And I wouldn't be sad at all if they got rid of Wentz and the head coach at this particular time. I don't know what they're doing to that team, but to snatch, because Jalen Hurts was doing it by himself at one particular point in that game. He was going to will himself to win that game last night. He was doing it with his feet, Ice. Mm-hmm. And for a coach to do that, I don't care if he won the Super Bowl 2 or 3 years ago. That's just not cool. And, being a Giants fan aside, I've been out there playing football. You play to win. I don't care what your record is. You play to win. You want to win. You want to feel good after you get off that field that you got a victory under your belt, regardless if it's 1 victory or 16 victories. What's your thoughts about that and, week 17?
Yeah, staying right there for the moment, just the timing of it. It's like Hurts has been moving the ball. He's running the ball. You're right in the game. Then all of a sudden you make a switch. So you say, well, he deserves time. He's been working real hard, kind of wanted to see what he was doing. Why at that time, when you're trying to win the game, you decide you want to put him in? All other times throughout the year, even when you took Wentz out, if you felt like he was the better guy, why you could have inserted him in? It's kind of like what Washington's football team was doing for a while. Once they made the switch over from Haskins. Then they had, Jones in for a minute, had the other guy in before a minute, but they were working it that way. But you're at the last game of the season. You're trying to build momentum. Some guys, as you mentioned, were possibly playing their last game as Philadelphia Eagles. They even to the point where they were, I think Wentz, Hurts, and somebody else were kind of hanging out on the field saying this might be our last time together. So they really they bought in. And for you to pull that at the very end is so unprofessional. And now what are you saying to the team as a whole? What about the chemistry? What about the uniformity? And just stuff that why should we believe in you anymore? Because what you just pulled. And for whatever reason he did it, he had no true explanation as to why he did it. And that's what just blew me away. And everybody's like, well, I know they're going to fine him. I'm like, but it doesn't matter now because once the playoffs starts, nobody's going to remember that. They're not going to care except for the players that were part of that organization. Then you have to ask yourself, why are they in the position that they're in this season? So that went a long way with me from that standpoint. In regards to the rest of Week 17, got to give some love, man, to the New England Patriots because they are the ones that got me over the hump. I almost won the whole thing, clear out stuff. Oakland. The Raiders came back with something crazy. I thought Denver had to. I was like, man, are you serious? But that's okay. I can live with that. But the Patriots, it was 14-14 later in the game. And I said to myself, there's no way hell Belichick is going to let them he's going to lose to the Jets, even though how bad they are. Actually, it was one of the better games for Cam Newton, scoring 3 touchdowns, counting for 3 touchdowns. But you had to say to yourself, okay, they won 2 in a row. Are we going to let the Jets beat us for the third time, 3 straight wins? Nah. So I was really impressed by that. I was like, oh man, come on, New England. And I usually don't root for them, but I needed that game. Otherwise, too, I was impressed by, even though they were playing against reserves, I was impressed by the Browns win, man, 24-22 over the Steelers. Just because from a morale standpoint, they needed that. And they had been in the playoffs for a number of years. And it wasn't like Pittsburgh laid down. Part of it, the Browns had to earn that win, and they did. And just for them to earn it and for them to move forward and finally make the playoffs, even though you have to turn right back around in the wild card round and face Pittsburgh again, I'm looking forward to that. I know Pittsburgh will be at all full cylinders, but there's something that says to me, if you really think about what happened last or the previous week, you might just have an inkling that maybe we can at least compete. And then if they stay close, who knows what can happen. I know a lot of people pick Pittsburgh to go to the Super Bowl, and they still think they're going to the Super Bowl. That's all well and good. But they showed me something, and I just wasn't picking that because of the way they played Dallas, because you think I'm a Dallas lover anyway. But anyway, the point of it is when they played certain games, they played up to the level of competition, or they didn't play as well as they could. And I think that's going to hurt them as they move forward in the playoffs, even if they get rid of Cleveland. The other game, too, is you mentioned Black Thor, was Baltimore. They are literally tuning up for the next level, bro. Tuning up. They're at that point where they don't care who's in front of us. We want to show y'all we're not sitting anybody down. We're not putting reserves in. We're taking them to the woodshed. We're going all the way for the juggler. It's going to be interesting because I think Buffalo is going to do well. I'm just looking forward to this playoff setup and to see who's going to rise to the occasion. Because now it's wide open. You put that 7 team into the playoffs, so only one team gets a bye, and the other teams now have to we'll find out who's for real and who's fake. But the Washington national team, and let me just say this, preface this real quick. I am glad Dallas didn't make the playoffs. I am glad, because now everybody can stop talking about them. If you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, they're like, whew, let somebody else take that hell for the rest of the year. Somebody else can deal with it, but they did not deserve to be there. They have not played that way. And the sad thing about it is they kind of give you a little where they play a little bit better one week, and then they come back and they just fall straight down. They give you a little false hope. But yeah, I from the beginning, I think halfway through, I was like, this is not going to be a good season. But they kept baiting you along. Oh, okay, nobody else wants it, then Dallas will take it. And then Philadelphia was like, don't worry about it, Giants. we got you covered, Washington. Maybe because the whole Ronald Rivera thing, it's a good, feel-good story. So I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's what it is.
I kind of would like it to go by record, because nobody in that division really deserved to go to the playoffs. So do it by record, who had a better record to go in the playoffs, because that's one of my friends hit me up like, oh, you mad because the Giants didn't make the playoffs? I'm like, no, the Giants didn't deserve to make the playoffs. Neither Philadelphia Eagles or Washington or Dallas, anybody in that division. It just made my day, because I'm not a Dallas Cowboy fan, that, the Giants were the one that kind of took them out. But nobody really deserved to be in the playoffs. But Washington with Chase Young, I hope he get a little taste of Tom Brady. I really hope he gets to Tom Brady. I don't know if they're going to win the game. I don't think they're going to win the game. But please hit Tom Brady. It's just 2 good shots. 2 good shots, NFC shots. But Baltimore better bring their lunch pail, because Henry just rushed for 2,000 yards, over 2,000 yards. They better bring their lunch pail. Last year, they took them lightly. And there's some really good matchups in the playoffs in this new system they have. You have Indianapolis at Buffalo. You have Los Angeles at Seattle, Tampa Bay at Washington. You have Baltimore at Tennessee on Sunday. You have Chicago at New Orleans. And you have Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Here in Chicago, they're trying to kind of have the little face that, oh, we didn't back into the playoffs. We earned our right to the playoffs after that shellacking from Green Bay. But they get that 7th spot. They get in. They go to New Orleans. New Orleans seems to be – they didn't have running backs last weekend. Didn't matter. They just rolled on along. And this may be, the rumor is out, this may be Drew Brees' last year. Your thoughts on the upcoming playoffs?
Well, other than the Washington Tampa Bay game, I'm kind of excited to see. I mean, that game that if they don't get to Tom Brady, it's not going to be much of a game. I respect Washington for going in the weak season, but then again, one thing about the playoffs, man, you never know. Like they say about football, any given Sunday, any given time, it would surprise me if they did take Tampa Bay out, but I doubt that's going to happen. The Steelers-Cleveland game, to me, I think is an interesting game for a couple of reasons, because Steelers sometimes don't bounce back like they think they ought to. I know they rest some players and they did that, but they kind of, felt themselves early in the season. We saw what happened. So it would not surprise me. Cleveland came out, and if they just came out and ran the ball, I keep saying about the Cleveland the whole entire year, run the rock. Stop trying to act like he's something he's not, the quarterback. I think they can hang in there. Not sure if they can win, but they can hang in there. That Tennessee Titan games, you said, and the Ravens, you're right. Because I don't know about Tennessee, though. Sometimes their consistency can be a little bit funny. And right now, if you made me choose, I would take the Ravens over this game, bro.
Wow.
I just think that the quarterback, since that time he went off the field and came back, he's a different quarterback, bro. Something about him is different. Early in the season was a little inconsistent, but right now, him and that team offensively are feeling it. But some real good games. I do like the setup where only one team now gets a bye. I think it's going to be tough for the NFC to go up to Green Bay in the cold and beat Green Bay in the cold. It's going to be tough. I'm not saying Green Bay is that good, but I don't see a team that's packed right now in the NFC with a good running game, a solid defense. What's going to take to play in the cold and beat them there? I don't see that team. I just don't see it in the NFC.
Yeah, second year in a row, 13-3, and Aaron Rodgers is just kind of taunting everybody, saying, "Hey, where are you folks that were talking in the beginning of the season and said we need that, we need this, we need that? Here we are again." And I'm thinking he's getting the MVP this year. Ice, your thoughts about the playoffs coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I can see him getting the MVP. I mean, he's done some things done more with less. So I don't have a problem with that. But we all know that the conference championship and the Super Bowl is not won in the regular season. So he's going to still have to show it. And granted, not saying that he can't, but he's going to have to show it, because you look at it, everybody's talking about Tampa Bay. I'm not sure Tampa Bay is good enough to go up there and beat them. That would be interesting to me if Tampa Bay can advance. But also, this is Drew Brees' last hurrah. Is he ready? I mean, to play? Do they get Michael Thomas back? That's the main thing, too. Do they come together? Because when the defense of New Orleans comes together and plays well, they give a lot of people problems. And all they would need then is to give Kamara the ball and figure it out. It could be a little mini shootout, but they could put pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I think there's a lot of good, interesting games. So I like New Orleans. Seattle just seems too shaky to me right now. I mean, their defense played well for a couple games, but I'm not sure if they have enough. Even if they advance against Rams, I think Russell Wilson's not playing the way that we started off early. Maybe they caught up to him, but that's going to be a little shaky for me too. Buffalo and Indianapolis. I think Buffalo's on a mission, and I think they're ready. I think they're hot. So the way that it goes, I think they're going to beat Indianapolis. The other game, 2 games, Tennessee and Baltimore. Man.
Yeah.
Like you said, as even Black Thor mentioned, what Tennessee team is going to show up? If the Tennessee team that goes for the juggler and smacks people around, is very physical, shows up, I think they beat Baltimore. But if they have any play where they're not playing on their game, Lamar Jackson will eat them up. He will run for 9 touchdowns if he has to. He will find a way to get it done, and especially with it being in Baltimore. And then if it's going to be a little chilly, that could be a major problem. And Baltimore has something that I think they have something to prove. They have something to prove, so I'm looking forward to that. And last but not least, Pittsburgh and Cleveland. I'm with you. I'm telling you. I know Pittsburgh they're saying they're ready, but if I'm Cleveland and I'm not that coach, I am pushing the envelope to say, look, I know it was against the second, third string guys, whatever you want to say. Some of the same guys were still there. Let's find a way. We won this fair and square. I think we can get them. We just have to stay close, and let's get after Ben, you push Ben around and stay away from the face mask, because you know anytime you rub up against him, his face or his jaw or his collar, you getting that call, either the horse collar call or you're going to get that face mask call or hands to the face. If they can stay away from that and put a little pressure on him, Cleveland might. I know that's saying a lot. Cleveland might have at least a chance to stay into the game, but I'm looking forward to these games because it's right here. We go from one extreme to the next. And then also you turn around, college football is right there. NFL, I'll just say this in my last point. NFL knows what they're doing, right? We've been talking about this all the time. Puma canceled the season. The whole night. Puma canceled the season. And they said, you know what? We're going to add an extra team in there so we can not only have one team that has a bye. And now it's like, it's so exciting. And nobody's talking about anybody get sick. Hope they are all healthy. Because if they're not, we won't know about it. Anyway, that's how the numbers go. They're on full tilt right now. They're going to tell everybody, let's go. People were excited. Football's back. Puma, you even have to say a little something about that because the fanatics are back and they will not be stopped.
Yeah, because you add that extra team, you add a whole nother city and maybe some TV revenue, you add a game. And that was a smart move. Because when they talked about this at the beginning, I was like, I'm not really sure that this is a good idea to add one more team to the playoff. But last year, the Rams and Pittsburgh would have been in the playoffs if they added this system. And I'm like, well, maybe it's okay because the Rams, I would have liked to see the Rams and Pittsburgh in the playoffs to see what would happen. But now you got Chicago excited. They're not confident, but they're excited about the Bears being in the playoffs because, like I said last week, they only beat one team that had a winning record. Now, all the teams you play has a winning record. So you saw what Green Bay was able to do to them. Green Bay just made it look easy with them, and it was almost like practice. They were running practice drills. You see how they kind of twisted up Trubisky with that defense. They kind of know him. He could have had like 3 or 4 interceptions if guys could catch the ball on the defensive side. But, I'd be interested to see Cleveland. Cleveland just lost one of their big defensive linemen for the season. So that's gonna really hurt them as far as getting pressure on the ball. And Pittsburgh, I saw trying to get their running game going because you need a running game in the postseason. Trying to get those running backs off didn't really work. But I thought when I watched that game that there was a pass interference with the 2-point conversion, but nobody said anything. But maybe that's just me being a Pittsburgh rooting for Pittsburgh. I don't know. But I thought the game should have went to overtime with 2-point conversion, and let's see if we can put Cleveland out of its misery. That's what I thought. Any other thoughts about the season, Black, or the playoffs?
The season that left to you that should not have happened. Not a bad season, bro. I mean, realistically, I mean, there's some weeks where some teams kind of didn't really get up for it, and that's understandable. I mean, I look at Tennessee sometimes, they had their ups and downs, but they dealt with the COVID early in the season. Some other teams did as well. So you put all that into the mix, bro, hell of a season. Yeah. And, like I said, and I'll double down on it, NFL finds a way to deliver a product to you, bro. They just do. I mean, they make some glitches. Like last night, that game should not have been on TV at Sunday night. I'm sorry. I mean, I know sometimes they scratch their head. They make some glitches, but when it's all said and done, they find a way to deliver a product. And I'm going to tell you, being honest, outside of them, for some reason, I'm having a hard time really cluing into sports. I'm just this. I don't know if the break that we experienced when the pandemic first started, but I'm having a tough time really getting to the NBA, to college. I mean, it's just not a smooth transitional flow where it's taking my focus. But NFL, you tell me NFL was on, bro. I don't care if you got 2 mice out there, NFL uniform, I'm watching it, bro. So, they find a way to capitalize. I mean, to bring you in. And what can I say, bro? That's what they do.
It's a man's sport. It's a man's sport, and it's rugged. And if they can't do it, then nobody can. They can't get out there and play and go against the elements, no matter what it is. Nobody can. Ice.
Yeah, I just like to say, we talk about the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game and that pass interference. I like to see them call it and try to get out that stadium. That's what I like to see.
I thought it was a pass. I thought it was pass interference.
Knowing what was on the line.
Yeah.
I like to see them trying to get out the stadium. Like, just gonna let them go. Look, just let that go. It didn't happen. Let them have their day. But yeah, it was a good season, man. I mean, it's like your favorite team wins, your favorite team loses. But overall, the competition was solid. I liked it because of the fact that there's really no dominant teams. Even when you saw where Kansas City kind of struggled a little bit, you saw the rise of Buffalo, right? Buffalo's coming along. Tennessee's up and down. A lot of questions. We're hoping that Baltimore had more impact, but they even struggled. So there's no clear-cut team that makes you go, oh, yeah, those are the guys. You can say that about Kansas City, but they're up and down at times. And then the question is, are they going to have a Super Bowl hangover when they get against a certain team? But overall, thought it was solid. And the one question people talk about or they ask about is, how did the NFL cover this COVID thing? I mean, it was some shady goings on. I read a lot of things about different things about different procedures that nobody wants to talk about. I saw a couple of writers talking about particularly the Dez Bryant situation. Mm-hmm. Dez Bryant is supposedly diagnosed with COVID or whatever, doesn't play, and then all of a sudden he's out and then he's back. And it's like, well, hell, if he was diagnosed right before the game, doesn't that mean that he could have got some other guys infected? They ain't talking about that. The game went on.
Yeah.
It's like nothing stopped. Nothing stopped. It was like, we'll worry about that next week. But this week, you got a game. We just found out. Oh yeah, he has COVID. Is he here? Oh no, he's at home. He's mad. But wasn't he just at the facility like yesterday? Yeah, but don't worry about it. Play ball.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. But that's the NFL, man. Sometimes down and dirty, they do what they had to do. And as long as you don't look close enough, you don't see what we're really doing. Don't look too close. Don't look too close. But we're going to get it done. You want to see the game, don't you? That's all that matters. Let's go.
Speaking on that, we're going to transition to the NBA because Kevin Durant is shelved for 7 days because of a COVID protocol. And so the same thing you just said about Dez Bryant, it's like, doesn't he? I mean, I see the guys in the NBA, they after a shot, they're slapping hands, they're hugging, they're doing all this stuff. I'm like, so he's the only one that has it? He's the only one that has it? And everybody was giving him the championship about 2 weeks ago. Now they had a 3-4 record, you know. And so, you know, the teams that are really kind of doing well right now, especially in the East, is Philadelphia and Indiana. And in the West, you got the Clippers and you have Phoenix. And, of course, the Lakers and Utah. But give me your eye test, Ice, on the NBA, man.
Yeah, you mentioned about Philadelphia. I mean, first of all, let me talk about Brooklyn. If you really thought that they were going to try to win the championship right away and you buying into all that, something wrong with you. Because, I mean, they have a nice team, but they have to gel. After 5 games, you really can't tell anything. Spencer Dinwiddie's out for the season, one of the main contributors coming off the bench. I think a lot of stuff is going to happen there, but I want to get back to Philadelphia. 5-1, Doc Rivers is kind of finding a way. They keep threatening that they're going to look again at that trade for Harden, for Simmons, and the rest of their squad. But if I'm them, I stay put because I'm not saying Doc Rivers is the savior anyway, nowhere means by that, but at least they're playing better than what they were. Guys are in the correct position. Ben Simmons can run the point, but Ben Simmons should be in the open floor, catching passes, running around with shooters where he doesn't have to do too much thinking and too much focusing on where he has the ball too much in his hand. Then you have to get the big fella and be set up where he can get his touches. It's kind of like Kareem when he played with Magic. He's, hey, all right, pass me the ball. Mike, we'll get your big butt in your position. We will get you the ball. Don't worry about that. Quit worrying about trying to bring the ball up the court yourself. And I think that's where Doc Rivers helps them because he at least can take them to a place that they have never been before, and they've been trying to get there. The other team I like that I think is playing halfway decent, or once they get everybody back, I'm going to talk about is Indiana. I like Indiana. Always like them. And I think not trading Sabonis was major for them in the offseason. You got Brogdon averaging 20 points a game, Sabonis averaging 20 points a game. Oladipo's averaging 20 points a game, and T.J. Warren was a secret coming out of Phoenix, averaging 15 points a game. That team overall is solid. I think they're going to cause some major pain for some teams as we move forward in the regular season. I like them to move forward. One other team, and I'm going to talk about a couple players. Houston Rockets. I know a lot of drama and everything like that. I don't know if you've seen him. John Wall is playing some basketball, son. John Wall is healthy, and he's taking it to some folks. And I hope he stays healthy and keeps playing the way that he is, because he's acting as if he wants to play again. Plus, they have another gentleman over there, last name of Christian, who played for Detroit last year. He has like 13 points a game. Now he has like 20. He's a power forward. He's having about 23 points a game for Houston, looking real well. I just like the way that they're trying. You have a young coach in Silas trying to get everybody together, and he has his hands full. But he's trying to get it done. I'm not saying they're going to win the championship, but I like to see Wall come back healthy, at least play a good season along with DeMarcus Cousins, and maybe Harden to figure it out. Because right now, it appears the packages for Harden are getting cheapened by the minute. More people are just like, all that stuff you thought you were getting, they're like, no, we don't. Now we give you this. We don't want that. Well, look, that's all we're giving. Because now people really see for what it is. Like, we want him, they basically want him for a little bit of nothing. Because if you don't trade him, you're stuck with him. And if his attitude, you got to stick with him. So you got to help us. You got to give us something instead of now teams saying, we'll give up all our pieces. So
help me help you.
Yeah, basically. Basically, yeah.
Black, I include myself in this. I kind of felt like for Golden State, this was going to be a rebuilding year. Draymond Green gets back in the lineup, and they're looking like the old Golden State Warriors with Seth dropping 62. Ice texted me last night like, I'm watching the Golden State Warriors. Seth dropped 62 like it was nothing, and I guess he's taking on the attitude like, Clay here, I gotta play for Clay too. So, I gotta put 30 in for me, 30 in for Clay. So your eye test, man, on the NBA.
I still think Golden State is the rebuilding year, bro. That's 62, whatever, it's nice, but he ain't doing it every night, bro. He's not doing it every night. It's just not happening. It's interesting because I think the East itself, I think it's still early. I'm going to say don't write off Brooklyn yet. I'm not saying they're going to win the championship, but I think it's still early. It's way too early. Even with Philadelphia, I know we want to kind of crown them a little early because Doc is there. We've seen this show with Doc before. Wait till the middle of the season. Wait, because Doc has a way of not coaching players. I don't care what anybody says. And we've seen this with Doc before. He's had talent before. When it comes down to coaching him, he stands there with his hands in his pocket. He doesn't coach him. So I'm not convinced yet about Philly either. I said this, bro. Harden ain't going nowhere. That was all media driven. Harden's not going. I'm watching the other team. They're playing tonight. He's out there playing. But I will say this about Houston. The cats that are around him now, they don't care if he's getting the ball or not. He's going for the ball. They're not giving it to him. It's not like, we're not Westbrook. We're not CP3, bro. We're not just feeding the ball. We're going to get ours, too. So Wall's like, I'm getting mine, bro. You may never
I tried to tell y'all, and I told you, he don't care. He don't care.
Yes. Yeah, they're like that. They're not worshiping him anymore. I do like, I tell you a team that they may not go anywhere, but Atlanta.
Yeah.
Trae
Young.
Woo! That young man is coming alive, bro. He is what we thought he was going to be, which you may not have been previously. But that cat, I know I said this before. Right now, I would pay to see him play. If I could go to a game and watch somebody play, he would be the person, the top player I want to see play because that Rouse was balling, man. I'm happy to see some young players around the league outside of the names we always hear about starting to ball. So,
yeah, I was watching him, man. It's almost like he's caught up with the NBA game because you saw him in his first year. He was kind of feeling his way through, and he wasn't that. He wasn't the guy we saw in college, and so this year it seemed like he worked on his game. and he's just pulling out some tricks out of his hat that just shaking up folks. It's good to see. It's good to see. You know, I always root for the little guys. Always root for the little guys. So let's switch to college basketball real quick. And Gonzaga's still holding on to the #1 spot, followed by Baylor. The team that really kind of that I see that is kind of moving up and moving up quick is Texas. Mm-hmm. Texas is a pretty good basketball team, and Shaka has that team playing. I mean, he has a new look. Shaka got hair now. You know, he got wavy black hair. I didn't recognize him. I'm like, when did Texas get a new coach? And I'm like, oh, man, that's Shaka with hair. I thought it was a wig, but it's his real hair. So he grew his hair during the quarantine, and that's a new look team. Kansas dropped down 3 spots to #6, which I always kind of figured Kansas would drop out of the top 4. They were in the top 4 at one particular time. The team that I watched and I really like, and Juwan Howard has his team playing really well, is Michigan. They're 9-0 right now. They moved up 6 spots from where they were last week, and they're really playing tough. And there have been some rumors or reports that teams are kind of postponing games. I know Duke, I think, did I hear that correctly? That Duke was postponing games, or that Coach K wouldn't be at certain games because of the COVID. But I don't know what that situation is. But Ike, I'm gonna give it to you. Your eye test. And one more thing I want to mention: Iowa with Garza. They're a team that people I think focus on Garza a lot, Ice, but they are a great 3-point shooting team. I mean, they play well, their chemistry, and they know that you're going to double and triple Garza, and they're ready to shoot when he kicks the ball back out. That's a very scary team to me. I think that's a team that a lot of people don't want to see when they come to the tournament. And also, they said that all the tournament play is going to happen in Indianapolis. So stick it to you, Black. There is going to be March Madness, and they're going to have it in Indianapolis. Yeah. Your eye test, man.
Yeah. Iowa versus Rutgers was one hell of a game. Rutgers is an upcoming team. They have issues with shooting free throws. They were a team last year that really wanted to play in the tournament, but everything got shut down. But Iowa, as you mentioned, showed that they played well when they played Gonzaga early on. That was a hell of a game. They just ran out of gas. They didn't have enough juice to finish. But Iowa is playing really decent ball right now. They beat Rutgers 77-75. Kansas gets destroyed by Texas 84-59. Kansas doesn't have that #1 guy that you kind of hold on to. No, there's no, you know, Azubuike's over there to kind of ride the train on. So they're up and down. They're still learning. I think they'll be okay come tournament time. Michigan, as you mentioned, is playing really good ball. Beat a very good Northwestern team, 85-66. Very impressive. And they're coming along well. Another team I like to look at is Wisconsin defeated Minnesota. Minnesota's a good team. The Wisconsin beat Minnesota by 12. And then yesterday, Minnesota beats Ohio State by 17 on the road.
Yeah.
17 on the road. And so that says a lot about Wisconsin. If you are able to take out Minnesota like that, then Minnesota comes back and beat a more than decent Ohio State team. Goes a long way. But Wisconsin has some very interesting matchups coming up in their next 5 games. I'm looking forward to those games. I'm probably going to try to watch all of them. They play Michigan, they play Rutgers, they play Ohio State, and they play Northwestern in the next 5 games. So that they're really going to be tested, and we're going to find out truly what they're made of.
Yeah. Yeah, DePaul, I'm not even sure DePaul is going to be playing the game this year because they're postponed with Villanova, who's ranked #3. Black, any thoughts about college basketball, man?
No. No. I will say this. I'll believe the March Madness happening in Indiana when I see it, bro.
Oh, you're starting to sound like Puma.
I'm saying, how many teams usually go 64? It might shrink down to about 32.
Okay. They'll probably go 68.
Yeah. 60, all right, yeah. They're gonna invite high school teams to fill in the gaps.
I got a question for you, Black Door.
Yes, sir.
You're not watching college basketball. You're not participating in the March Madness?
I'll be the March Madness, man. Don't worry about that. Brother, gonna be the March Madness.
And look, we don't want to hear that excuse. I ain't seen nobody play this
there,
year.
there will be no excuses. I'll be in March Madness. If it happens.
I ain't gonna say much because you know how he always copies what we.
Oh, come on.
Look out for this team. Look out for this team. Then all of a sudden he's scratching, you know, scratching his notes out. Notes of the team.
Now he gonna run the tape back.
Yeah, these shows are out there, aren't they?
Before I get to some of the other sports, boxing, things of that sort, it seems like we're doing this every week. We lost Paul Westphal, we lost Floyd Little, and we lost Mario Andretti. I used to follow in car racing. Mario
I didn't hear about Mario.
And so we're going to start with Paul Westphal first. Ice, any thoughts about Paul Westphal?
Yeah, great all-around player. You know, we know about him in Phoenix. I found out, I didn't know this, that he started out with Boston.
Yeah.
He was Boston, and then he ended up, and he won a title with Boston early on in his career. And then he catapulted to Phoenix to that kind of old school, smooth kind of basketball where they move without the ball, score, move around and cut. He and Walter Davis, man, used to be the Greyhound, used to make some things happen out there in Phoenix. So very great player, ended up being a solid coach as well. He's a definitely top-notch player. So rest in peace, damn good player and coach.
Yeah. He used to play for a number of teams, Boston Celtics, Phoenix, Seattle, the Knicks. Ended his career with Phoenix. I remember when he played for the Knicks for a short period of time. Black, your thoughts?
I think his coaching really do. I think his coaching was understated, and I think he was a better coach than what he got credit for. And he wasn't coaching long, but he was coaching Phoenix. I enjoyed the way he moved with the ball, like you said, the ball moved, and the way he coached. He never got looked upon as being a coach, more as the player that moved around quite a bit. But a damn good coach, man. Damn good coach.
Yeah, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2018. Glad he was able to get his flowers before he passed on. And rest in peace, sir. The other guy is another guy close to my heart because he went to the same high school I went to, Floyd Little. And me and Mark share a cousin, Lonzo Woods, who used to play for Hill House High School. And Lonzo broke Floyd Little's records there. So when I came to play football there, the coach that coached Lonzo was like, "Can you play running back?" And I said, "Well, sir, I don't play running back. I play other positions," because he thought he had another Lonzo coming in. I used to watch Lonzo back at Brookside and Rockview play Pee Wee, and just you give him the ball on the 20, he's going 80 yards. And Lonzo, you know, run at the end of the game had like 400 yards and run. He was just that bad of a cat. But getting back to Floyd Little. Was born in New Haven, Connecticut, and in 1942. He passed away. Wasn't a really big guy. He was like 5'10", almost 200 pounds. Played for the Denver Broncos, played for Syracuse. He was the #1 pick in the NFL draft in 1967, 5-time Pro Bowl, first-team All-Pro in 1969. He was the rushing leader in 1971. So if you played Hill House High School or you're around Hill House, you knew who Floyd Little was and how important he was, and you would get the history of Floyd Little when it came to Hill House High School and being from New Haven, Connecticut, a homeboy. Black, your thoughts, Floyd Little?
It's interesting, man. You covered a lot basically from here in New Haven, but I'm not sure. This has happened maybe in the last 10, 15 years. I'm not sure if you've been back to visit. At Hill House High School, the school that you speak of, they built on a sports center that does a lot of different things. It's named after him. It's named in his honor for years, man. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes down to here and locally, Floyd Little, come on. It's not much more to say. His name speaks for itself.
Yeah. Ice, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just remember because when I was first coming into football, right, NFL football, and I remember him because he was number 44, played for Denver. It's a little guy, very little. And back then is when they were very physical defenses in playing football. And you would see guys like him, see guys like Mike Pruitt, guys like that, little shifty little backs. You're like, how's that little dude getting outside with that speed? You just thought they were gonna get run over at any point, but he was very shifty. Actually was a staple at the end as a running back for Denver for many years. And when you heard, there's certain names you heard, because Denver really went back then, really wasn't winning championships. I think they won the Super Bowl 77 against the Cowboys, but you really didn't hear them like always as a powerhouse. But one of the names that you always heard about the Denver Broncos when they mentioned the offense, Floyd Little, definitely. Top-notch guy, rest in peace.
Let's get to boxing real quick. There was a fight that I tuned into Ice, but I tend to think, and I'm not trying to hate on Golden Boy, but I am trying to hate on Golden Boy because it seems like Golden Boy fights are fixed. That's my personal opinion. Because they're trying to bring up this up-and-coming fighter after Canelo. And then what else pissed me off today is that Canelo said something, I don't know if they translated it wrong, but he said he wanted to be like Muhammad Ali and Julio Cesar Chavez, and he was raked across the coals on Instagram for that statement. Your thoughts about the fight with Garcia, who was trying to call out some other fighters that I know he can't beat?
Well, I watched that fight against Luke Campbell, and Luke Campbell was a champion, tough guy, kind of a little bit more stiff as well. And Ryan Garcia made a lot of mistakes early on. Actually, so many mistakes that he got knocked down in the second round. Then he started to come around, and then he started to figure it out. And he's young, so he's still learning, and I get that. But he has a lot of work to do. And as soon as he won, he said, I told y'all I'm ready. Calls out Tank Davis. I was like, really? You know, as they say, you don't want that smoke. He has so many flaws right now. He's talking about the Teofimo Lopez. Oh, my goodness.
No.
And even Devin Haney. And they boxed in the amateurs. But I think one thing I found ironic about him is he has a lot of potential, and they want to get him. They need the next guy, right? But the next guy needs some work. He needs some time before he starts running his mouth. One of the things that you saw Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy, do right after he ran his mouth like that, they said, well, yeah, we want to fight those guys, but when he's ready, kind of pull him back, like, not right now, because we saw the holes. And if the holes in his game, if you let that happen against this guy, what's going to happen when you get in there against some? And Gervonta Davis is laughing and cracking jokes. He's like, please, please, sign that tomorrow. Please, I mean, I will hurt that young boy. I just think he needs some work, and I think Golden Boy realizes it too. So I don't think you're going to see him jumping out there like he acted as if he was at first. I think they're going to pull it back and kind of slow it down a little bit. He might fight a Devin Haney because they're two young fighters trying to figure it out, but you don't need that step, particularly that Teofimo Lopez. I mean, Tank Davis is probably getting two, but Teofimo Lopez is that dude's an assassin. He gets you anyway.
Well, because the reason why I mentioned that because De La Hoya was saying, "Oh yeah, I think he's ready for all these fighters, and I'm confident that he can beat these fighters." And I'm like, "Yeah, you were confident that Canelo could beat Mayweather. You were confident that you could beat Mayweather, and so that doesn't mean anything to me. It's like it's like they know the fight game and they know how to make money in the fight game, but they don't have the fighters that you go, ooh, that guy, that's the next guy. And that's why I keep seeing. This is the second time I've seen this guy knock out somebody with a body punch that didn't seem too hard of a body punch to knock out some guy. And so that's why I'm thinking, okay, something's not really right here. It doesn't feel right to me. So I don't know if he's the next up and coming. They want to keep him pretty. They want to keep that cash flow coming from the many fans that Golden Boy has. So we'll see. But when he said that, and then I see the comment with Canelo, he wants to be Muhammad Ali. People were raking him across the coals saying, Muhammad didn't use no steroids. Muhammad didn't eat tainted meat. Muhammad didn't, cherry pick his fights and all this other stuff. And I'm like, man, you about to, I mean, that's a big statement for you to be making. You just need to kind of lay low like you've been doing, cherry pick, get to the end of your career, move on, become a Hollywood star. Quit trying to pull out these guys like Julio Cesar Chavez and all these folks that you have basically screwed up that kind of chance of you being thought about in that light.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, and plus too, when you start mentioning Ali, I mean, love him or hate him, some people are not really feeling him as well because of other things that were going on. But Ali fought everybody, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he fought. You think about Ken Norton breaking his jaw, George Foreman, when nobody thought he would ever beat George Foreman, what George Foreman did to Joe Frazier, right? He fought Frazier, Ron Lyle. There were so many tough guys. Like
I mean,
Kurt Slavers, that. So, I mean, and even fighting an Olympian like Leon Spinks, who surprised him the first time, came back, beating him the second time. So the fact that he's cherry picking these fighters, when you know the Canelos are down, and the Canelos, I know you can see the Charlo down there, Andre down at 160, and you just keep going the other way because it's easier for you. You got to do better than this instead of fighting a 40-year-old Triple G for the third time. You're going to have to do better if you want to get the acknowledgement for being the greatest. Just because you fight against guys and you're undefeated, I mean, you only lost one fight. Now you're talking about you will fight Floyd again, really?
Yeah, we always have the saying you can't play boxing, but Canelo is playing boxing.
Yeah,
he's playing. He's not fighting. He's playing boxing. He's not boxing.
Yeah.
Boxing. Now, I'm not saying he's not good.
No, he's very good.
But you got to test yourself against the best, and he's not doing that. And that's what disappoints me about it. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. You got to fight the best. And so, what I've been seeing in the last 3 to 4 years of his career, nah, you can't put yourself in that light.
It's almost as if he's like removed everything. It's like, I'm not going back to 160, right? That's where all of the challenges are. Because you have Charlo, you also have Demetrius Andre, and even Errol Spence. I'll come to 160.
Yeah, I'll come to 160. Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm going to go to 168. I'm going to be the champion here and there. And then he'll come back down to 160 about another year and a half when Triple G's 49. And he'll fight him because it's a money run. So really sad, though, just to see that.
All right. Questions from the squad. Black, what's your first question, man?
Ooh, I was looking forward to asking about the possibility of Mayweather and the Golden Boy getting it on. I know we might have talked about it before, but is there a possibility that fight really taking place?
Ice?
I think so, because Mayweather, I think, is going to go in February with this little tune-up, this little dude or whatever, this YouTube guy, just to kind of whet your appetite. And then you go, well, man, why are you fighting that guy? Man, it's just something to do. So you get a little money. But Oscar De La Hoya is desperate to get back into something. He's running his mouth, and you could fight somebody like somebody older, outside the box, or try to fight somebody like a Triple G. You don't need that. But Floyd is perfect, all right? Floyd has been off for a little bit. Oscar supposedly lost some weight. He thinks now it's something that if he beats Floyd, or in his mind, if he beats Floyd, he's finally redeemed himself, right? Years later. And Floyd is like, I'm willing to take that chance with you just so I can beat your ass and humiliate you one more time. Because Floyd is his worst nightmare, because Floyd doesn't make sense. Floyd's not the pretty guy. Floyd has made more money than he has. Floyd is even hired his companies to promote his fights so he can make more money. And now, when he had Canelo, he was copying everything Floyd did in regards to the fight game and promoting the whole nine. So he's always had this thing with Floyd, and I think definitely it will be a fight we can see. I was at that fight, literally. I was in attendance. And when Floyd came out with that sombrero with the Mexican colors from Cinco de Mayo, man, there were so many, Hispanic or Mexicans in there, man. They were like booing and throwing stuff. They were mad as hell, but that's what Floyd does. So he would love another opportunity to come in and really beat up Oscar this time. So yes, to answer your question, I think it can happen. I would pay for that.
I wouldn't pay for it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. It's a money grab. It's a money grab. I said that before. It's a money grab. You just said it. They work for the same damn company. They're trying. It's like they're putting a snow job on the boxing game. They playing boxing. They ain't boxing no more. They are playing boxing, and they're playing us with all this money. And you said it's something I just don't want to see. I'm not really interested in. I want to see these younger cats. I want to see them go after each other. I don't want to see these old dudes fight no more. I really don't. You had your time. You ran away from each other. Now when you're over the hill and you're not at your prime, now you want to fight and you want me to pay the same prices as if you were in your prime? No, man, miss me with that. I don't want to see that. You know, it's nostalgia now because we've seen them coming up. If it wasn't for Snoop Dogg in that Jones-Tyson fight, I wouldn't even watch that fight.
Oh my God!
I wouldn't watch that fight. They were hugging and loving and kissing and all over in the ring. No, man, I don't want to see that no more. So miss me with the nostalgia. Give me the fighters that are in their prime. Let's get this going. No more the showboat exhibitions, Barnum and Bailey circus kind of stuff, man. Give me the real fighters, man, to fight. Black, I know you said you don't like to watch boxing because the heavyweights ain't where they used to be, but are you going to really watch this?
Tell them why you're mad, son. I'm just going to say this, man. Part of me feels for you, bro, because you still believe in boxing. You just still believe in boxing. And what you don't realize, it is a money grab. That's what boxing has become. There is no more pure boxing. It's all money grab. I look at that fight that was on about a month ago. I think it was on ESPN. When they claimed the boxer cut him with whatever, ESPN showed you the video 20 times. There was nothing clear what that ref was saying, and they still told you what you saw you didn't see. Boxing is a money grab, bro. And it's sad that you believe that you want that. Yes, it's going to happen, and I will pay for it. I'll be honest with you. Because there will be excitement around it. And that's all you want. That's all you can expect now with a boxing match, bro. These young guys you're talking about, nobody cares about them. They haven't established themselves yet. They don't have a name, don't have a brand. You got two cats that got a brand. You know the foreign nationalities, they're gonna come out and watch this fight. You know Floyd he's bringing a crew of people to watch. Bro, it's a money maker, man. Whether you could dislike it or whatever, boxing is a money grab. So if you ain't seen nothing yet, pretty soon Holmes and George Foreman gonna be back in the ring, bro. It's all a money grab. If they can get them back out, it'll be the Bing Gay circuit. Get ready for it.
Holmes Tyson rematch.
Sponsored by Snoop and the Weed Company.
Yes.
And Ben Gay. And CBDs. Oh man. Ice, your question, man.
Oh wow, I'm flabbergasted after that one. I'm like, yeah. NFL football. We've had the COVID had its reared its ugly head. Do you think COVID has had a true impact on the amount of fans that are watching, as far as the viewership, or people that are into it, or you think it has not had any effect at all?
Right.
I'm gonna say this, man. I think other than NFL, I think it had an impact, bro. I do. I don't. It's funny because I've yet to hear about the ratings about the NBA. I don't hear ratings about college. There's a reason why they hide that information, bro. Because I don't think it's pretty. I just don't think it's pretty. And I don't think they don't want advertisers to hear much about it because they want to see going forward. But I remember we all kind of said, in a sense, when sports kind of shut down for a little while, football hadn't started yet, we found other things to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
We occupied our time. And in a way, we sat back and said, you know, to sit back and watch a game sometimes like they're on, you're kind of wasting your time. So I think it's hard to get people back in that mode again. And I think the reason why football has benefited from it, in a sense, or kind of stayed the same, maybe with the viewership, because football wasn't on and wasn't taken away from us. College basketball was on and was taken away. NBA was on and was taken away. Baseball never had a chance to really get his mojo going. So, yeah, I think it had an impact. And I don't know if it's going to be coming back anytime soon. Certain sports. I think baseball has an opportunity when the springtime comes to really get it going. They got to find a way to promote itself. But NBA is going to be interesting to see. It's going to be real interesting to see how things start to pick up. I think there's a part of the NBA where people are starting to kind of tune out with LeBron a little bit. And it's just like, we've seen this show numerous times. So they really need other teams and other players the ball to bring the excitement, but I'm not sure. But the answer to the question, yes, it has served as a point to where viewers are not coming back that quickly, if they come back.
Yeah, I agree. I think you gave when people were quarantined and sports was non-existent for that period of time, people really began to realize that sports is not essential. It's not all that important. And people found other ways to occupy their time. And so, but football to me is like a religion. You know, it's something that is kind of entrenched in our society where, you know, football comes on, especially NFL football comes on Sunday. You know, it's church and football. And you got certain areas that's what it is. It's you go to church, you do your religion, and then football is your other religion. So I think football had an easier time to capture, and it wasn't on every day or every other day. It was maybe college football on Saturday, pro football on Sunday, and you know, depending on who's playing on Thursday and Monday, it's hit or miss. But what said that to me, and what really kind of hit clearly, is I gave a stat out a few weeks ago on our show where you had the sixth game of the NBA Finals, and it had like 5.6 million viewers. But you had a Wednesday afternoon game with the Steelers in Baltimore with a third-string quarterback, and it had almost 12 million viewers on a Wednesday afternoon. So if that doesn't tell you how much, and it wasn't really a game that had any playoff implications or anything. It was just two rivals going against each other, but you had a third-string quarterback. You knew who was going to win that game. So that, for me, it told me that football is kind of king in this country, and people will watch football as opposed to any other sport, and we'll stick it out with football a little bit more. And then the NBA and the NFL didn't really kind of change anything to make it like seem like it was affected by COVID. And I think that was the appeal too. Ice, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it did have an effect from the standpoint of, because there are a lot of fans that love going to the games, right? So I think the fact that a lot of people could not attend in person, it really affected them because they like to have the stadiums packed. So, but I think what they did is they just kind of adjusted. So I'm almost certain that people still at home, they got their jerseys on, you know, they're still rocking and rolling. They just have to watch it from home. Might be some pay-per-view or whatever, some red zone or whatever they're doing. People are still watching it. And now you're seeing with the playoffs coming around, people are really excited for their teams. But I think a little bit of fans being able to watch some of the games, they're probably going to overprice those tickets. So those diehards will be there watching the playoffs. But then others will just kind of dive into it. As you mentioned, they really didn't change their season. They postponed a few games, but they have not really stopped any games total. So it's kind of like football, NFL football is all systems go. So now it's just like, okay, now we need to get you to buy some stuff online and get you to buy into it, and so you can continue to support our sponsors and our advertisers. You're just doing it from home now. There's always a way, and I guarantee you, they'll probably either show the Super Bowl and do something to kind of make you make you more intrigued with it, which is why they lined up all these games on TV this weekend. They're like, boom! Yeah. This whole thing is like, let's go, baby. Get your snacks and let's go.
Right before the college playoffs. Black, last second shot, bro.
Ooh, I'm going to give my last second shot to Henry, man. Because this cat, to me, takes me back to the days when running backs kind of basically ran the NFL. We haven't seen that in a while. And we don't say much about it, but there's a time when running backs were kind of like the stars in the NFL. Franco Harris, cats like that, Earl Campbell. He's a throwback, man. So I know we appreciate him for what he's doing, but he takes me back when I'm watching, man. Keep going strong, bro.
All right. Ice, last second shot.
Yeah, I know you don't expect it, but I'm going to give my kudos to the Ohio State Buckeyes. And I'm going to tell you what, the Ohio State Buckeyes were in a situation nobody gave them a chance in hell to compete against big, bad Clemson, who are a team that they lost to earlier. And then with all of the ways that Ohio State has lost, only playing 6 games. And then, of course, with the quarterback not playing well, so many negative things going on that they were doomed to lose. No one expected them to win except for themselves. But the way that they played, again, as we talked earlier in the show, the way they played defense, containing a top-notch offense and the number 1 pick in the draft, and then also defense stepping up, and then the offense with Justin Fields riding the ship and showing you that he was really ready to play despite being injured. They had a full-out alert, and they played a well-called game, and they wanted revenge. They wanted revenge. They got it. They used their aggression in such a way that they channeled their inner vision towards winning football games. And for them to win that they won, for them to earn that victory says a lot about their program, says a lot about them as a team. They still have one more challenge to go. And I know they think they're going to win it. They hope to. But the way that they defeated Clemson, to me, was a masterful performance in front of the whole nation. And that's not too bad for the 11th best team in the country.
Good shots, guys. Mine is Ohio State related also. People always ask me why I like college football better than pro football. And pro football has its points. But I watched Justin Fields take a shot, come back on the field, and a courageous performance. And they asked him after the game, why'd you come back on the field? And he said, I wanted to do this for my brothers. And this brother doesn't get paid to play this. Then you watch the Philadelphia Eagles last night and tank a game. And the coach make a decision and not play to win. And then you still wonder why I like college better than the pros. These guys get paid to do it. This young man didn't have to do it, but he said, my brothers out there in the field, I did not want to let them down, and went out there and won 6 touchdowns, did whatever he could to win a football game. That's why I like college football better than the pro football game. That's our show.
Back to what I was saying, this idea that, you're now going to incorporate the Negro Leagues stats, into the major league stats thing is kind of, that's kind of a slap anyway, but they didn't keep as detailed as stats back then, as the major leagues did, but it's that to me is just sort of like the owners or whomever just trying to feel good about themselves, you know what I mean, about how stupid that was way back then, and really how stupid some things are still, but that's another story. That's another podcast.
Yeah, we talked about that maybe, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
We felt about that. When it first came out, I was, and most of those guys, if not all of them, are passed on.
Yeah, exactly. And, Satchel Paige played in the major leagues when he was about, who knows how old he was. Nobody ever knew how old he was, but he wasn't the Satchel Paige that played back in the 30s. You know what I mean? He wasn't that guy either. You know what I mean? That's what's too bad.
Yeah.
But anyway,
you're right too. When you think about those records, man, inaccurate records. I mean, you're not even doing them justice, because the way you would really want to do it properly, you can't. So why not just put them in? Everybody just be quiet, shut up, put them in the hall, acknowledge them, but don't come in like you're trying to change the record books. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like Josh Gibson, who knows how many home runs he really had? Some people think he had more than Hank Aaron, or Babe Ruth. But some people think, no, he didn't have that many, but nobody really knows. But what you do know is he was a legend, in his own time. That's the reason you should be in the Hall of Fame, is because everybody else thought you were the guy,
Yeah, and that's bizarre too, because we talked about that before, where I remember when Hank Aaron, as a kid, Hank Aaron broke the record, and growing up, Babe Ruth was everything. I love baseball. Babe Ruth was everything. His record was like nobody will ever touch it. When Hank Aaron broke it, it was like, yeah, all right, and it was like no big deal. But then, because of his color of his skin, but then Side Howard O comes around, and it's like, well, he's the new home run king. I said, he never saw a major league pitch. How the hell could he be the home run king?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, who knows how good Japanese baseball is, but it ain't, nobody's ever said it's as good as the major league, by any stretch, but that's like, Barry Bonds comes along and does what he does, but then you find out some of the advancements he enjoyed in PEDs, et cetera. But which so who knows what's right, man? I mean, how many would Babe Ruth have did if he'd known somebody was going to be coming after his record someday? You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. You just got to put your number out there and move on. But yeah, you're right. I mean, but even like Fritz Pollard, was the first. He was a player coach for what was the Akron team? What was their name in the NFL? Yeah. And I think they were the first champions of the NFL. Mm-hmm. And he was an African American dude. Right. And then all of a sudden, African Americans weren't in the NFL for 20 years or something? Yeah. 25 years until like Bill Willis and those guys came along.
Yeah, Marion Motley, like that. I mean,
yeah.
They had back in the day with the Dayton Triangles and teams like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, like you just pointed out about the jockeys that won the Kentucky Derby, shoot. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, I'm glad we got Tim on today, man. That was good stuff, bro. That was good stuff.
Yeah, man.
He's good, man. That cat's something else, man.
You need to follow him on Twitter. He's spot on a lot of stuff, man. I used to talk about it earlier, man. People are feeding them, giving them information that, everybody's not getting about the players, what's happening inside the locker room, all this stuff, man. I'm like, wow. So when he says something like, he called it, he said, man, Ohio State's going to win 38-31. I kind of looked at him like, damn. So he's not, to me, the reason why I like him is because you would think because he covers Ohio State, he's a homer, but he's not. He's just realistic in his analysis, and then he'll call it like he sees it.
Yeah.
He just calls it like he sees it. And that's why I like him. Even though he covers them, he's like, okay, I can see that this is going to be a problem. I don't know about this.
Yeah. Well, part of it when you're in the city and you cover them, you're not, unless you work for the station that's designated
right.
flagship station, you're not supposed to be a homer.
Right.
You're supposed to talk about the team and point out some things. And I think that's what he's done well. He's done that from the standpoint of grabbing the information, sharing it with other people and seeing it from a different light. And that's why I think he's well respected in that manner. While other people they're more fans.
Yeah.
Than they are, he likes players. You mentioned, he likes talking to these guys. He's impressed by them, but he still has a job as a reporter. It's one of those things that he doesn't go one way or the other. He's kind of straightforward with it, gives you the information, and he'll make jokes and stuff about it, but it's still true information.
Wouldn't that be nice and refreshing if we still have folks who did their job like that?
And then the funny thing is,